guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Fit Women's Weekly podcast. I am so excited to have you here. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. I hope that you get some nuggets in this episode that make you want to go and back and listen to past episodes, and of course, come back and listen to future episodes. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Kindal. I have been a personal trainer for over 17 years. That's crazy to me. But on top of that and the knowledge that I have from my experience, I also have the experience of being a woman. I have dealt with my own demons and my own what's right, what's wrong. Should I try this fad? I've been there. I've done that. And so in this podcast, I like to bring to you guys not only my professional opinion and my knowledge, but also the struggles that I've experienced in my past that have gotten me to where I am today. So all that to say, welcome to the show. If you are not already subscribed, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It really does make a big difference in helping other people find this amazing community that we are so lucky to be a part of. Because you guys are my fit family, and I look forward to hanging out with you guys every single week. This week, I want to talk about something that I received a comment, or a question, I guess I should say, asking, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds. What do you recommend? Like, how do you even get started with that? So I jotted down the 6 steps that I would do if I were to start losing or starting to put together a plan to want to lose around 5 to 10 pounds. And I'm going to share that with you guys. And then I thought it would also be fun. I actually put in a prompt on to ChatGPT to see what AI would say that I should do. I have not looked at it at all. We're going to read it together and we'll see how similar or how disjointed our two thoughts are. So without further ado, let's do this. Now, again, if this is a question that is interesting to you and you want to know more about it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And then at the end of the podcast, I also want to talk about a little bit of that's going on in the fitness world of Fit Women's Weekly, giving you guys some tips that even if obviously you're not in Fit Women's Weekly, what you should be doing or what I recommend to help you get started with your fitness journey at the start of the month, just to kind of get the ball rolling in the right direction. Okay, so let's do this. You want to lose 10 pounds. What the heck should you start doing? Number 1, you can't start a program if you don't know where you are right now, right? It's kind of like if you are lost in the woods, you can't get to any place if you don't know where you're starting from. So with that being said, if your goal is to lose any sort of amount of weight, you need to know what's going on. So I would take the next 1 week to 2 weeks. I know that's hard because you want to just hit the ground running, but we want to make sure that we're doing this in a sustainable way to track your movement. Track how many steps you get per day. What's your daily activity right now? How many workouts are you getting? What kind of workouts on a scale of 1 to 10 are you really putting in the effort with them? Like, are you lifting weights? But when you're going to lift weights, do you finish that workout going like, I just went through the motion of strength training, or are you really pushing it? So take notes of your workouts, take notes of on average how many steps you get per day, and then also take notes of what is your nutrition. Yes, I am recommending starting off tracking your nutrition, not with any goals in mind, not making any tweaks. Try to stick to literally what your normal day-to-day routine is. Be honest with yourself so you can get a good overview of what are your daily habits. And then those habits are also going to help us on later, and I'll talk a little bit more about that right now, but it's going to give you your starting place. Then if you know that over those 1 to 2 weeks you haven't lost any weight, then you know that tracking and those calories that you've been eating are your maintenance goals, right? That's where if you don't want to lose any weight, you don't want to gain any weight, that's your average calories that you need to be taking in. However, of course, you can also just go to a nutrition calculator and calculate what your average calorie consumption should be in order to maintain your weight where you're at. Now, those aren't 100% accurate, but it does give a really good starting place. So I actually recommend doing both of those, tracking your food to get a good baseline of understanding your current habits and going to find out what your daily calorie expenditure is, how many calories you put out, so how many calories you need to eat in order to maintain your weight. From there, after those 1 to 2 weeks, that's when you start really putting together the plan that's going to help you get from where you are to where you need to be. And part 1 with that is, in order to lose weight, we've talked about this before, you have to be in a calorie deficit. That means you have to burn more calories than what you are taking in. And you can do that through two different ways. One is through energy expenditure, so through exercise and through daily movement. And two is through the nutrition, trying to cut your calories back so you are consuming less. And both are actually really, really important and what I would recommend doing. So here's the thing though, we're going to talk about more about fitness part of it all here in just a second. You can absolutely lose weight just with diet alone, not exercising at all. And in fact, that is where most of your progress is going to come from. However, here's the thing. If you were to diet and not worry at all about any sort of exercise, your body is going to try to lose weight the most efficient way. It doesn't like to be in a deficit. A deficit literally means your body is not running optimally, right? You're not giving your body what it requires to run it where it is, and it really likes to stay where it's at. So if you're not giving it the food that it needs, it's going to start saying, I'm in an unhealthy position. I need to bring myself down to what I'm taking in so that I can maintain this like homeostasis, right? And so instead of just being like, I'm going to burn all this body fat, it says, how can I do this? And the best way is to let go of tissue that it's not using, which comes from your lean mass, which is your muscle mass. Muscle does require calories in order to keep it strong, keep it healthy, keep it there. And if you're not working out regularly, your body is going to say, I have these biceps that I'm not really using. So in order to help bring my daily caloric needs down, I'm just going to get rid of them. And that's where exercise and nutrition come hand in hand. So your diet tells your body, hey, I'm not giving my body what it needs. I need to get energy from somewhere. Whereas the exercise that you do is telling your body what kind of tissue it needs to give up. So if you are strength training regularly, when you are in a caloric deficit, it's telling your body, I still need this muscle. You're going to have to find another way in order to lower your caloric needs. And that's when it's going to turn to your body fat. So it's going to then break down your body fat, and that's where you're going to get the results from. So nutrition is so important. So number one is to figure out what is your deficit going to look like. Now remember, when you're trying to figure that out, you're going to take that daily caloric need that you've calculated, right? How many calories do you need to stay at maintenance? And then for healthy weight loss, we want to do this in a sustainable way. You don't want to all of a sudden go from eating 2,000 calories a day to 1,000 calories a day. That's a lot. You're going to be miserable. You're not going to be able to maintain that. And once you lose the weight and start eating again, you're going to gain it all back, if not plus some. And so to lose 1 pound is around 3,500 calorie deficit per week, right? Half a pound to 1 pound is normal weight loss. So what I would recommend is starting in a deficit of about 10 to 15% of your maintenance calories, or at about 500 calories roughly per day. If you cut out 500 calories, that's pretty easy to do and not be noticeably starving. Now, will you be hungry? Yeah, because again, you're in a deficit. Your body doesn't want to be in a deficit. So it does make your hunger cues go up to be like, hey, give me what I'm used to, right? And so you'll go through the first day or two, or maybe a couple of days where you do find yourself hungry. That doesn't mean that you're in the wrong. I know that a lot of fitness people are out there trying to tell you, oh, I eat 3,000 calories a day and I'm losing weight all the time and I'm never hungry. They're lying, okay? In order to be in a caloric deficit to burn body fat, you do actually have to be in a deficit, and that means that you might find yourself with those hunger pains. It's about having a plan when those pains come up that's going to help you get through that. So a little bit of hunger throughout the day when you're in a deficit is totally normal. So like I said, the start would be about 500 calories per day. So that's with your diet. The other part of your diet is that you want to make sure that you are eating the foods that help you to feel as full as you possibly can. You don't want to be miserable when you're in a deficit. Even though you're going to be a little hungry from time to time, there are little tricks. And part of that is number one, trying to avoid processed foods, trying to at least limit. You can still eat them, but don't make them the majority of your calories or your lunches. Things like pasta or bread or simple carbs that break down really fast. carbohydrates start to break down in your mouth, which means they're digested very quickly. And that's why you might be super full when you first eat them, but then you're hungry an hour later. So you want to make sure that you're eating satiating foods, foods that are high in protein, high in fat, and that are also complex carbohydrates that are high in fiber. Think fruits and vegetables, and not the starchy stuff, not the bread stuff, not the simple carbohydrates that break down really, really quick. That'll help you to be able to make it from one meal to the next without feeling starving, which leads me to protein intake. Again, we're going to focus on strength training, which we'll talk about here in just a second, but eating a high diet of protein when you are in a deficit is going to help you stay fuller longer, and it's also going to help you maintain your muscle mass when you are in that deficit. Like I said, so that we can focus more on burning body fat instead of just letting go of our muscle mass. And when you're in a deficit, you are going to lose a little bit of muscle. That's just going to happen, right? Anyone that tells you that's not going to happen, again, they're just trying to get you to buy their product. They're lying. But we do want to try to optimize it as much as possible so that we are holding on to as much muscle mass as we can. And part of that is with strength training, like we've already discussed. And then the other part of that is through getting enough protein into your diet. So when you're in a deficit, I recommend doing 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound that you weigh. Pound, not kilograms. A lot of people have said, like, but things say kilograms. That's for maintenance, or that's your quote unquote average, right? That is not recommended for people who work out or people that are trying to lose body fat. So what we're focusing on right now, let's just kind of break it down because I know we're covering a lot here, is 1, track your food to figure out where you are, to see what your daily habits are. 2, calculate your maintenance calories and then go into a caloric deficit. So in order of priority per day, you want to hit your calorie deficit. And then number 2, you want to hit your protein goals. The other parts will fall into place, your fats and your carbohydrates. But those are the 2 that you really want to make sure that you're aiming for each day. The third part, and the third thing that I would do if I was trying to lose 10 pounds, is to prioritize my exercise. Putting in 2 types of exercise. I would spend at least 2 to 3 days per week with strength training. Good, heavy strength training where I finish the workout and I go, wow, I really did push myself. Not with 2 to 3 pound weights doing 50 reps at a time. Now, as long as you're going to close to failure, if lower weights are all that you have, then you're still going to be pushing and working your muscles and getting to a great zone. But the problem is that most people, if you're using those light weights, aren't doing enough repetitions to actually make it challenging for themselves. So you want to make sure that you're using weights and you're following a program that takes you close to failure with your sets. So another thing to think about. And then the second aspect of my training would be, am I getting cardio in? I know. I feel like we kind of did the shift where back in basically I would say up until about 5 years ago, most people would prioritize their cardio and not their strength training. Now I feel like things are starting to flip-flop and they're like, I want to get strong. I don't want to be a cardio bunny. And it was almost a revolution against cardio. Like, I'm not your typical woman. I'm not going to be a cardio bunny. You guys, cardio exercise is so important. It is working our heart. It is working our lungs. And it is a great way to burn off energy. So cardio exercise is just as important as our strength training. And so when you're focusing, it's not about doing one or the other, it's about fitting both in. They don't have to be long sessions, but I would focus on 2 to 3 strength training programs or strength training workouts per week and 2 to 4 cardio workouts. I would say if you're just starting off, 2 to 3 cardio workouts, and that could just be 20 to 40 minutes, depending on what you have. But it does need to be something that brings up your heart rate and actually makes you work for it a little bit, where you're huffing and puffing, you feel yourself breathing a little bit harder. I know, again, on social media, people are saying like, walking is my cardio. Walking is daily movement. And for some people, if you are very overweight, then yeah, walking might be a cardio workout. But for most of us, if you're losing 10, if your goal is to lose those last 10 pounds, then I'm going to guess that you're not insanely like overweight, right? So just to keep in mind that you got to do a little bit more than walking. That means going for a jog, bike riding, doing the elliptical, jump roping, going for swim, rollerblading, those sorts of activities are what's considered cardio. And you want to do that in more of a steady state. Or you can also do HIIT training. But if you are doing heavy strength training, you can implement Metcon training into the strength training and get some amazing results. And then keep your cardio more for lighter days so that you can have more of an active rest day where you're just kind of going at that steady state. You can carry a conversation for the time, but your heart rate is still coming up. So strength training 2 to 3 days a week, cardio 2 to 3 days a week. That is still going to give you, for 3 to 1 days of rest and recovery, which is very, very important. So we've talked about our nutrition. We have talked about our exercise. Now let's talk about our daily movement. Exercise, especially with cardio, you can only do so much of it. That's why I limit it to about 30 to 40 minutes at a chunk, because once you go past that 60 minutes, that's when you start to really feel it in your hunger levels, where the next day you're just ravenous. And obviously, when you're already in a deficit, that's going to make things a little bit harder to stay at a deficit because you're like, oh my God, I'm so miserable. However, one way that we can still add in some good movement that's going to help us burn off the calories so that we remain in a deficit is, instead of doing cardio or high intensity movement, is that daily movement of going for walks. You burn very little calories when you're actually exercising, and you actually burn most of your calories in the day from just moving your body. If you're somebody that can't sit still and you're always playing or swinging your legs and things like that, that's one way. And then the other thing is to get out and get some steps. Our body is not meant to just stand in one place all day. Our body is not meant to sit down in a place all day. So you really do want to prioritize just getting your steps in, not for your cardiovascular health, but just for your daily movement. That's really good for you. And it's also going to help you burn more calories than what you are taking in. And so I would suggest, this goes back to our tracking. Track how many average steps that you were doing, and then each week increase it by about 1 to 2,000. If you're only taking in 3,000 steps per day during the work week, which I know a lot of people that do that, I wouldn't suggest all of a sudden going to 7,000 steps. That's over doubling what you're doing, and that's quite a time crunch, right, that you're not used to having. And so instead, start doing 4,000 steps during the work week, 5,000 steps during the work week. After you're able to maintain that for a certain amount of time, for a week or two, then add in another 1,000 until you're getting between 7,000 and 10,000 steps per day. That's a really healthy place. Research shows that 7,000 steps per day decreases your risk of any sort of health issues. It helps to improve your longevity. So you don't have to stress out about getting the 10,000 steps, which I've talked about this in the past, of the story behind 10,000, but that's a made up number because 10,000 steps is just an arbitrary number that's easy to remember. 7,000 steps is a great healthy place. If you are already there, then start focusing on seeing if you can get to 10K, but don't stress out about that specific number. So movement is our third thing. Diet, exercise, daily movement. Tip number 4 is sleep. Sleep is where your body recovers. This is where your body is going to take everything that you have done and then actually be able to do something with it. And so you don't want to avoid it. Make sure that you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That's it. Focus on good quality sleep, turning the lights out, setting yourself up in a dark area, making sure the noises around you are something that helps you to relax. We have a fan that blows on us every night that helps us, and make sleep a priority. And then tip number next is to create a training log. Not just some sort of app that you use, but actually grab something like a training book. I actually have been keeping training books since I was about 18 years old. I'm so mad because when I sold my car, they were in my car and I got rid of them, a lot of my older ones. But I have all of my training books from the past 6+ years. At this point, I have about 12 of them saved. And not only is just having a pen and paper helpful, it helps to hold you accountable. So if your goal is to log 3 workouts in per week, having something that you can actually write it down with, and so you can visualize it better versus just like an app on your phone that disappears when you're out of the app, it's going to help you stay a lot more consistent. At least it does for me, to keep you going going in the long run, because you're going to look at it and be like, oh man, I still need to write one more workout down. And you're going to hold yourself more accountable to actually getting it done. Whereas if you're following some sort of app or you're just writing it in your notes, it's really easy to ignore it and to avoid it. And then it doesn't help keep you as motivated, right? That's just me personally. I think it's really helpful. I try to get all my clients to have an actual pen and paper notebook to write things in. In the long run, it goes a long way. As great as technology is, sometimes just good old pen and paper is where it's at. And those are really the biggest things. Now notice what I did not say. I did not include supplements of any sort, because if you don't have the fundamentals down, then those supplements are just there to take you to the 0.01 tier, right? And so we really need to focus more on those fundamental elements before we decide to add in anything like creatine or magnesium. While those things are important, they're not going to help you get these amazing results. They can help you a little bit in your overall health and wellness, but they're not going to help you burn body fat. That's not the point of creatine or any other protein. Now, if you are having a hard time hitting your protein goals, then yeah, a protein supplement like whey can absolutely help you. I don't consider protein powder necessarily a supplement. I consider it a ingredient to make a protein shake or something like that. So again, something else to keep in thought. And then the other thing that I did not mention was doing something like 75 hard or some other sort of like big fad training plan. Because if you want to do something like that because you want, like I talked about last week, because you just want to see if you can, you want to practice discipline, you want to prove to yourself that you can do something challenging like that, then go for it. If you are relying on 75 hard or you're signing up for a marathon because you think that that's going to help you lose weight, then I'm going to be here. I'm going to hold your hand while I tell you this. That is not the case. Those things are very extreme, and you might see some crazy weight loss during it, but that is not a sustainable way to maintain your overall health. And so when it's over and you start reverting to a quote unquote normal life again, the results that you got are going to go away very rapidly. So do your best to avoid falling into the trap of any type of fad or anything that seems very extreme. Just ask yourself, why do you want to do it? Right now, my husband and I are doing a 30-day carnivore challenge. Not because we're trying to lose weight or we're expecting to see these crazy transformations with our body. It's because we want to prove to ourselves, like, well, he's never done anything like that before. I have, because I love experimenting and telling you guys how it went. And so he's just trying to prove to himself that he can do it. And he wants to see what it makes his body feel like. And because I'm the supportive spouse that I am, I'm on board with him. I do all of our cooking. So I'm like, well, I don't feel like cooking 2 meals. So if you're doing this, I guess I'm doing it too. But the point is that we're not doing this crazy fad to lose weight in any way. We're doing it as a discipline test. The other tip that I would have is pre-plan as much as possible. Remember how at the beginning I said, write down your normal meals. And so what I would have you do is, what's your weekly meal look like? Do you typically eat the same dinners one week to the next? If that's the case and you've noticed, like, okay, in order for me to be in a deficit, I don't want to stop eating my normal foods. So I would do some quick research and try to figure out a little bit better ways to prepare my food to decrease the calories. So maybe instead of using 85% ground beef when you're making your meals, start buying 93% ground beef instead. Can make a really big difference. Instead of eating chicken thighs during this time, switch over to chicken breast. Instead of eating normal pasta, maybe you want to try doing like a high protein pasta or like a palm linguine pasta with hearts of palm. They're made of hearts of palm. Actually, my husband and I love those kind of noodles. So start changing things out. And you might go through times where you're like, this doesn't taste like the real thing. That's okay. You're still getting that satisfaction of like sticking to your routine of spaghetti night, but you're just making those small tweaks to help you decrease the calorie load. Or the other thing that you can do is decrease your portion sizes. If you're used to on spaghetti night, for example, having just a big old bowl of pasta with a side of garlic bread, let's start cutting that portion down to half the size. And then instead of the garlic bread, because now that's just carbs on top of carbs, give yourself what you need, which is more micronutrients in this meal. So you're going to have your pasta, and then you're going to serve it up with some like a salad or some sort of vegetable side, or some broccoli and some extra meatballs to make sure that you're getting the protein in there as well. So look at the meals that you want to include and then just do some research, have fun with it, and use this time to experiment. For me, that's what I'm doing with carnivore. It's like, okay, I don't want to just eat a burger, like literally ground meat on my plate at night. What can I do? So I've started to do some research, and I found something called milk bread that is made of powdered milk and eggs. And it actually fluffs up like a normal bread loaf. And so we've been eating on that. I'm just trying to make it fun in our meals and still change things up. What else have I done to kind of change things up a little bit? We're eating like breakfast for dinner, which has been fun. We are doing taco bowls still, but just without the veggies. So it's literally taco meat. And I'm going to be making some homemade like beef jerky over the weekend. So make this as an experiment with yourself of being like, here's what I love to do. How can I take what I love and still fit it into the plan? So those would be my recommendations. Oh, and then the last one, don't want to forget this one. This is why I write my notes down, is to make sure that you have a plan with your workouts as well. You know that strength training is important. You know that you need to do it 2 to 3 times a week, but what does that mean? Whether that's following a plan, maybe like Fit Women's Weekly Live, head on over to fitwomensweekly.com to learn more, or whatever it is, joining a local studio down the street from you. Make sure that you have a plan for what your workouts are, and make sure, especially with your strength training, that you are pushing yourself a little bit harder from one workout to the next, whether that's with heavier weights, going for more reps, whatever the case may be. Make sure that each workout you are taking yourself to near failure, which as you start to get stronger, that means that you'll be seeing yourself being able to push a little bit harder from one workout to the next. Even though you might not feel it, when you go back and compare your notes from workouts before, you'll be able to see that growth and see that progress. So have a plan. Same with your cardio. Map out what days you're going to be doing your workouts in. And then last but not least, allow for some flexibility. It's not going to be perfect. You're not going to be able to fit in every workout. Some days you will end up eating out and maybe not being able to track, or you do realize that you go over in your calories. Give yourself grace. It doesn't mean that you have failed. It doesn't mean you're not going to hit your goals. And always remember that things are about averages. So when it comes to nutrition, if you overeat one day, undereat a little bit the next day, or just move on and continue to hit with your normal goals. One bad day is not going to derail you. It is all about consistency. And then what I always tell my clients is that when it comes to your workouts, when life gets messy and you're not able to fit in that perfect 60-minute workout that you want to do what you can. Even if it's 5 minutes. On the YouTube channel, I have tons, at this point, dozens of 5-minute, what we call fit finishers, where a 5-minute workout is better than nothing. You're still going to sweat. You're still going to push hard. There have been 5-minute workouts where I am flat on my back after, like dying. So on those days where either time is a crunch or you're just not motivated, suck it up and get a 5-minute workout done. And that's going to hold you accountable versus being like, well, I guess I'm just going to do one 90-minute workout per week. You would get a lot more out of doing 3 30-minute workouts, or even a 30-minute workout and 2 5-minute workouts, than you would from one really long workout where it's not going to do too much for you. So smaller workouts throughout the week is going to do a lot more bang for your buck for helping you hit your goals. So if these tips were helpful for you, let me know. I know that we are getting a little bit on time, but like I mentioned, I did want to put into ChatGPT and see what his recommendations or its recommendations would be. And here's what they have to say. To lose 10 pounds in a healthy and sustainable way, it's important to focus on a combination of dietary changes, exercises, and lifestyle adjustments. Here's a guide to help you lose it effectively. And I promise I have not read over these yet. Number 1, create a calorie deficit. To lose weight, you need to burn more calories than you consume. A pound of fat is around 3,500 calories. So a deficit of 500 to 1,000 calories per day can lead to weight loss of about 1 to 2 pounds per week. I suggest more of the 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds, especially if you're only trying to lose 10 pounds. That's a lot. It's not very healthy. If you're eating 2,000 calories and you go to a deficit where you're only eating 1,000 calories per day, you're going to be miserable. And you're most likely going to gain the weight back when you are done with your deficit. They say track your calories, use an online calculator to find your maintenance. Number 2, follow a healthy eating plan, eat nutrient-dense foods, prioritize whole, unprocessed foods like vegetables, fruits, lean protein, and healthy fats. Avoid processed foods, minimize the foods in added sugar, refined carbs, and unhealthy fats like those found in chips, pastries, and sugary snacks, and portion control. Consider using smaller plates or measuring out servings to avoid overeating. Exercise regularly. Continuing strength training with cardio is an effective way to lose weight and preserve muscle. You know what? I feel like he was listening in. Strength training 2 to 3 times a week, cardio 3 to 5 times per week, of 30 to 45 minutes of cardio. 5 days a week, that's a lot. That can be really intense, especially if you're not used to doing like quote unquote cardio. 5 times a week is a lot. So I would recommend more of the 3 side. Increase activity outside of the gym, which we talked about. They say take the stairs instead of the elevator, walk more, aim for 8,000 to 10,000 steps per day. Remember, our goal was to first get to 7,000 steps, and then try standing or walking meetings if you're working from home or in the office. Now, remember, last week I did a podcast episode. I wasn't able to post it on YouTube, but it is posted in all other audio podcast platforms, where standing and sitting doesn't actually burn a significant amount different calories. But what standing does do is to motivate you a little bit more to move. So if you're standing and you hear something, you're more likely to actually go check it out, or to talk to a coworker, or to go, if you're working at home and you're standing, to remember to go wash the dishes real fast. Whereas sitting, you're like, okay, I'm sitting, I'm just staying here. Hydrate well. Drink plenty of water to help control hunger. Yes, I should have mentioned that. To reduce bloating and improve digestion, aim for at least 8 glasses of water per day and more if you're active. The general rule of thumb is you want to take about half of your weight in ounces, and that's what you want to drink. And then on workout days, try to get an extra 20 ounces of water in. Prioritize sleep, 7 to 9 hours, and then manage stress and track your progress. So overall, I feel like we're on the same side. All right, you guys, I also wanted to chat about Fit Women's Weekly Live and how we knocked off this week of our big challenge doing our assessment workout. I've talked about the importance of assessment workouts before, why we do them, why it's important to repeat workouts. But we are already getting to the end of today's episode, so I'm going to save that as a teaser for Friday's episode. If you did not know, I put out a podcast every Wednesday and every Friday, so just be on the lookout. We'll talk about accountability in terms of assessments. We'll talk a little bit more in depth. I'll give you guys even the specific assessment workout that we are doing if you want to do it, and I would love to hear how it goes. But that'll be out on Friday. Again, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast. I will make sure to put links down to Fit Women's Weekly down below, and I'll be back soon. If you have questions about this, let me know. If you found it helpful, also let me know that too. All right, bye.